Brad Williams, Excel Prime. What is data validation? Data validation is just a rules-based feature within Excel that allows you to set predetermined factors. Now, these factors can be formula-based, or one item equals a specific number and it has to meet those parameters. For example, here we have a data validation rule behind the scene here. It states if you enter anything, enter 1 or less than 20, it's going to throw an error. So if I enter 21, you're going to get this kind of error. If I enter 19, the valid entry. So how does it work? Well, I'll show you. We go to data tools, data validation. We're going to have a rules-based dialog box. So here we go to data tools, and data validation. Just click this, hit data validation, and we have this box here. And in this case, we have whole number, allow, data between minimum 1 and 20, and then that's it. That's a simple rule, but you can add all kinds of craziness if you want. So let me just explain a little more about the inner workings of this data validation. Here we have settings. Let's clear this, cancel, go to blank, go to data validation, go to data validation, and here is a blank setup. We have settings, input message, and error. In the settings, we have allow, and it says any value. You see here, any value. Then we have, you just click this drop down button, and we have whole number, decimal, list, so on to custom. Well, any value, selecting this option removes any existing data validation. Note, however, that the input message, if any, still displays if the box is checked on the input message tab. Whole number, the user must enter a whole number. You specify a valid range of whole numbers, like up here, by using data drop-down list. For example, you specify that the entry must be a whole number greater than or equal to 100. If we go to whole number, we have another dialog box, and we can select any of the options here. Then we can put a minimum and maximum. Go back up here, any value to settings, any value, go to decimal, same thing. The user must enter a number. You specify a valid range of numbers by refining the criteria. Again, so you have the options here, and then you have a minimum and a max. List, the user must choose from a list of entries that you provide. Type a comma-separated list of values in the source text box right here. And then this option is useful, and we discuss it in detail later in this section. Dates. The user must enter a date. You specify a valid date range from the choices in the data drop-down list. Here you go. We have a date, and we have between, and then start date and end date. Time. The user must enter time. Text length. The length of the data, number of characters is limited. If I put a parameter, enter text, you need to put a minimum and maximum. If you put this to 4,000, somebody could write 4,000, can enter 4,000 different characters. That's probably not what you want. So keep this limited. And custom, this is formula-based. To use this option, you must apply a logical formula that determines the validity of the user's entry. You can use anything in here. You can use the sum if, or equals sum, or equals average. Be creative as you want. In terms of the input message, here, let's just do this. Let's just go whole number so we can satisfy this annoying beep. Go to input message. You can put title. Let's go enter whole number. Here, you can see when you click on the box, it'll say enter whole number. Well, that should have been there, but you get the idea. Go back and data validation. If you want to put an error message, put an error message. If we go back up here, click cancel this, data validation, error message, stop, warning, information, and show error alert after invalid data, title, error, and says enter whole number. Now hit 21, and it says enter whole number. You can change this any way you want. Cancel. A couple other features within the settings. Ignore blank. You see, ignore blank. If selected, blank entries are allowed. in cell dropdown. If we click this to, let's say, decimal, in cell dropdown shows up in the list feature. And what does it mean? If you select list in the allow dropdown list, you can choose to show or hide a dropdown arrow to aid the user in selecting a valid date. It's just a dropdown. Let's say this was vegetables and I had carrots and beets and spinach. You can hit the drop-down list and it will list that information. Apply these changes to all other cells with the same settings. If selected, the changes that you make apply to all other cells that contain the original data validation criteria. To remove all of this, delete won't work. So you have to clear all. So let me show one important detail about data validation. If you don't have data outlined, in other words, a data validation area outlined, there's no way to determine if the data validation is in place. For example, here, if enter whole number wasn't listed, how would you know data validation is posted anywhere on here? We can create all kinds of problems. As we always do, what's the fallback? Go to find and select, go to special, then down here, hit data validation. Here we have 2 cells outlined. Keep that in mind. If somebody accidentally put in a data validation and passed this on to you and that person failed to recognize this data validation, that's a quick way to check. Now to get rid of this, just highlight the cell, go to data validation, data validation, go to the box, clear all. That's just for here. Hit OK, and then go back up to find and select, go to special, data validation, and you see just one cell has data validation in place. Brad Williams, XL Prime, thanks for watching.